Hello, beautiful people. It's your girl, the Alien Cat. Today, we're going to be discussing some of the best starter pals that you can have during the early game of Palworld. This is a combined list of pals that, in my opinion, are very beneficial during the early game. I have also taken the experiences of other people into consideration while making this list. You may not agree with them, and I would also love to hear which pals you believe are some of the best starter pals. A fellow viewer asked me in one of the Palworld videos, which pals do I believe are the best starter pals? And I answered them in the comments, but then I thought to myself, why not just make a whole video explaining it? So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first pal on the list is the cute and adorable Foxparks. This pal is very useful during the early game as it provides you with many benefits, including light during nighttime. It also keeps you warm when you have it out adventuring with you, and it will also cook for you. Along with that, the Foxparks is also a fairly decent fighter. It has a few special attacks that can really outmatch many of the early game pals. And one other cool thing about the Foxpark is that when you reach level 6, you can unlock the harness and you can turn it basically into a flamethrower. Isn't that awesome? All in all, it's just a really cute pal, and I adore this one. This is one of my favorite starter pals. The next pal on the list is the Chikipi. One could argue that it is not the best of any pal. However, I did just spend an entire episode creating an epic Chikipi, and it's a fairly cute fighter, I have to say. But in all seriousness, these guys are very useful, more so because they are one of the ranch pals, and they lay eggs for you, which you can use to cook fried eggs as a quick and easy little food source if you're running low on other supplies. And they are one of the crucial ingredients that you need in order to make cakes, which you need for the breeding process. If you ever need a guide on how to breed, feel free to click on the link in the top right corner of the video. Next, we have the Nitewing. This pal will be one of the first flying pals that you will capture in the game. Once you reach level 15, then you can create the saddle for the Nitewing. And having a flyer makes the traveling process just so much easier on the map. You can scale up mountains much easier. You can fly across areas, and this is your sure way of getting eggs and leaf monks in difficult spots. The next pal on the list is the lovely Cattiva. There are a couple of benefits with this pal. One of them being that if you have one in your party, it will increase your weight capacity by about 50. And the more Cattivas you have in your party, the more your weight capacity will increase, which is very useful during the early game, especially when you're trying to gather materials. Another useful thing about them is that they themselves are fairly decent early miners, which can be helpful for when you're trying to mine things like stone. The next pal is Celaray. A good early watering pal, and it can also be used as a glider, as it makes moving around areas a lot easier, especially if you need to quickly escape for any reason. They can also be useful for breeding later down the line, so it's worth having them. Next, we have the incredible Daedream. If you've been following my Palworld gameplays, you know how attached I was to my Daedream, and how I used it throughout most of the series. So what makes them useful is that when you unlock the necklace at level 8, if you have them in your party, they will follow you around and help you with combat situations when you're out and exploring. I cannot begin to express how many times having the Daedream out has helped me a lot during early and even mid-game, as I've used it for tower boss fights and alpha fights as well. They also have a fairly decent handiwork skill, at least for early pals, and they're just really useful to have around. Next, we have one of the most OP early game pals, and that is the sweet little Vixy. What makes this pal so OP is that this is another ranch pal that can make not one, not two, but 3 resources for you, which is freaking amazing. When you place them in your ranch, and obviously, the more of the Vixys you have, the more of the resources you will have. So when you place them in the ranch, the resources that they will provide for you are pal spheres, arrows, and gold coins, making them so useful during the early game phases, especially if you are able to take the time to condense the Vixys into a 4-star one, which can take some time. But if you're able to do that, then the Vixys will go from providing the blue PAL spheres to mega PAL spheres, as in the green ones. Next, we have the cute and fluffy Malpaca. This PAL is a very decent early game riding mount, as it's not super fast, but you can unlock the saddle at level 7. And it does have an ability which can give you a little bit of a speed boost. And they are also ranch pals, meaning that if you place them in a ranch, they will make stuff for you. And the stuff that they make is wool. They make much more wool than lamb balls and cremis. So either way, they are useful to have, especially since you need cloth in order to craft things like cloth armor and things like that. Next pal on the list is the Direhowl. These guys are very, very useful when it comes to exploring caves, mainly because they aren't very tall. Riding pals, meaning that they are able to run through the archways within the caves much easier than, say, the Eikthyrdeer, for example. I can't pronounce its name, I'm so sorry. And they're also fairly fast land mounts as well. And speaking of Eikthyrdeer, I hope I pronounced it correctly. This one obviously needed to be added on the list. While they may not be as easy to catch as the previous pals on the list, it is still one of the best early game lamb mounts. Not only does it have a special ability, which gives it a speed boost known as the antler uppercut, but it also has a double jump, making traveling around with this pal a breeze. And that concludes our list of the best starter pals in my opinion. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree? Do you think that there are other pals that are much better as starter pals? I want to know. Thank you all so much for tuning on in. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos every week. If you have any questions about anything, or if you would like for me to make a tutorial about anything specific, feel free to leave a comment about it down below. Until next time.